A lot more VR news is dropping as we enter the new year. We talked a little about HTC teasing us even on their own website, saying something brilliant is on the way with the dates of CES coming this week. This morning on Twitter, Bradley dropped some pictures that look a lot like official renders of the new HTC headset with the headline, Vive XR Elite $1,400. Now, a lot of times stuff like this that's leaked, I'll sometimes tell you take it with a grain of salt, but Bradley seems to get really good information, whether that's from people in the industry risking their jobs to leak it, or if it's the actual companies giving it to him for free marketing. If we take some time to inspect these pictures here, we see a lot of details on this that look promising, especially at $1,400 if you're comparing this to something like a Quest Pro. Obviously not if you're comparing this to a Quest 2. So the front end looks like exactly what we saw in the image that was actually sent to The Verge directly from HTC before. We see audio tunnels on the side. It looks like audio holes. That is where your sound is going to come out of. That doesn't give me the best promise of the best audio, but it does have included audio, which is becoming more of a standard. It used to be a VR. All headsets required some sort of headphones. We see on the inside what looks like a diopter adjustment like the HTC Vive Flow already has, and that is something that you don't see on VR headsets very often. That means if you wear glasses or contacts, you can adjust these individual diopters in each one and get them close enough to your prescription, most likely, that you won't need glasses at all inside the headset, which is huge for people who have to wear glasses or contacts or have lenses they snap in. This is just so much more customizable. You can put this on anyone's head, adjust it to them, and then they can see. We see what seems to be a port for a detachable battery cable on the side, suggesting maybe if you hook this up to a PC, you would unhook that, hook that directly into your PC, and bypass the need for a battery strapped on while using it for PC. Now, if you never tried to use a Quest 2 with a PC, you may not know, but that is a big issue with Quest 2s because it may still rely on its own battery pack for power, even though it's plugged into the USB-C port. And once you drain that battery pack on the Quest 2, it'll completely die. So being able to bypass the battery and just be able to directly play this way, that's promising if that's what this is trying to do. We are having to look at this and try to make some assumptions from what we see here with the hardware. So far, it looks like the pictures, the name, and the price are the only details we're getting. Obviously, more details will be coming out at CES, which we'll be at, so we'll be giving you more details on all of this. There's been a lot of rumors and prototypes of VR gloves in the industry, and it looks like some might be coming closer to market than before. Not only they have haptic feedback that electrically stimulates to make you feel real sensations, but it also tracks your fingers. The company AI Silk out of Japan is going to unveil their new haptic gloves at CES. So far called lead skin, these gloves look to weigh about as much as 2 Quest controllers, obviously, on each hand, and they're using their own patented technology that has smooth conductive fiber. It's actually using electrodes inside that can do several different things. This gives you finger tracking. There's control buttons on the back, which is kind of a strange choice, because I mean, I guess if you have one hand in each, it seems odd that you'd reach over and touch your other hand, not use the actual gloves, but it's an additional feature. And there's an electrical pulse that actually aims to help you feel like you're actually manipulating real virtual objects with your hands. This is a big part from your typical haptic feedback, which is just vibration motors making vibrations inside of controllers or other gloves that we've seen that have tried to do this. Another thing that hopefully we'll get to see and check out CES and tell you more about it next week after we go there. As we continue to get closer to CES, you'll probably hear about more and more futuristic hardware that's being dropped and demoed and showed off. Another one here is an interesting idea, a face mask that actually allows for facial tracking. Now, traditional face tracking is usually used by a camera looking at your face, and more advanced ones, they actually put dots and points on your face that you can even draw on. The camera sees those different dots moving and then has to interpret what facial muscles are causing those to move. This mask is actually on your actual face and is sensing how your face is actually moving to then input it into a virtual experience that you are using. This, of course, sounds like it could have much more accuracy than the traditional optical methods. Cameras have to face your face, especially if you have something like a VR headset that's covering parts of your face and making it harder to see. The company creating this is a Japanese startup that has bases both in the US and Japan, Dolami. They've already announced they raised the 100 million yen this week that they were hoping to bring this to market. Dolami is hoping to launch this potentially by the end of 2023 at about $90 for this mask. What do you think about that? Having worn masks for years now, a lot of us, how do you feel about putting on a mask for VR? It still has a mouth hole and a nose hole, so it wouldn't get in the way of that, but it'd be another thing on your face while you're in VR, potentially holding in heat. And of course, if you're sharing this thing, how are you going to clean it? Speaking of tracking, we are getting more and more details on what PSVR 2 game developers are utilizing the eye tracking for. And as we've seen demonstrations of how you can use it to control your HUD in Firewall Ultra, some really interesting details are coming out from the developers of Switchback VR. VR. Now, this does look like a spiritual successor to Until Dawn Rush of Blood on PSVR 1, but they're talking about how eye tracking can sense when you blink, and you're gonna get to a part in the game that's gonna say don't blink, and every time you blink, something will spawn. So either you learn to not blink, or you have to start timing your blinks to where you're more prepared to handle this. Keeping it as spoiler free here as I can, but I will leave links to the articles in case you want to read further yourself. That has me super intrigued and even more excited about PSVR 2. Other games like Tentacular are promising to use it. Instead of having to reach over and tap a character to get them to react, you can just look at them with your eyes and then press a button to confirm that you are looking at them. Moss Books 1 and 2 is promising to have an update where instead of having to reach out and touch an object and see if it glowed to figure out if it was interactable or not, when your eyes glance at that object, it would glow, letting you know that's something that I can reach out and use in the virtual world. Demio, talking about being able to look at a choice in the menu and blink, and that taking you into the game faster than having to aim and point and click, which is something we're used to in VR, but it is kind of awkward because laser pointers on every controller aren't always exactly aiming the same way. You don't develop muscle memory of, oh, I point here. With some controllers, I have to tip it up, some controllers I have to tip it down. Just being able to look is something that everyone would naturally do. Cosmonius, even making selfies more immersive. When you look in a mirror, seeing your eyes actually move around, or if you accidentally blink when someone takes a picture of you, guess what? Your eyes are closed. Eye tracking, of course, also being utilized for things like foveated rendering in Horizon Call of the Mountain to help give you better graphics by keeping it crisp exactly where you're looking and saving some of that rendering power in your peripheral vision that's blurrier anyways. More as we hear about this PSVR 2, it sounds more and more exciting and like a revolutionary headset. There's also some rumors that they were actually looking into wireless technology, but the news is it's not far along enough. It's too much speculation. I didn't really want to fully cover it, but I'll leave a link down in the description just in case you want to look a little further into that one yourself. Here in America, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world, and we see what a struggle it is for incarcerated inmates to come out and adjust to life back in society. Pennsylvania Department of Corrections is trying something different and utilizing VR to help prisoners get more communication with people on the outside, adjust better, and talk to their children even. The Pennsylvania Department of Corrections is trying to allow prisoners to communicate and spend time with their children outside of the idea of having to bring those children to the actual prison for short visits through virtual reality. Not only would this allow for more visits on top of their normal in-person visits, but they're utilizing VR training to help people go shopping virtually, using a cell phone, cleaning an apartment, things that they would have to do to be a functioning member of society once they are released from prison. The uses of VR outside of gaming are always something that I find really interesting. So this was something that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, because this is very different and very intriguing. A lot of news, but there's gonna be a lot more as CES comes and all kinds of things drop. We get to see things while we're there. So what questions do you have? What are you hoping that we'll see when we go to CES? I'd love to know in the comments. We'll keep an eye out and give you coverage on everything we can possibly find out for you there. But I want to say thank you so much for coming out and being here with us today. I'll see you in another reality.